I hope I'm audible now. Yes, I think I'm audible now. Still no voice? Am I audible now? Good. So I got one thumbs up, and now that I am audible, once again, a very lovely good morning to all beautiful people, and most welcome to another class in English. Today, as promised, we are going to do prose, and as we do prose, we become stronger, better, and more prepared to face the examination. Well, those of you who are interested in question papers and their solved solutions can go down to the description box and avail of them. There are 2 available for literature and 2 available for language. The unsolved and the solved as well. Okay? So, without much ado, let's begin with the important points that they are for quality. Now, before I start this particular lesson, I would want to share another important thing with you. I think quality is one and Fritz is another. These 2 should be very well prepared by you. In the previous years, we have not come across them. These 2 are definitely going to come in the examination. Please be very well prepared with them, and therefore I am starting with them. Okay, that's my tip to you. That's my sincere advice to you. Okay, so we start with Quality by John Galsworthy, and let us first begin with the important points. What are the points that we can quickly go through, remember? And after this, I shall be sharing quotes with you. Okay, I'll be sharing quotes with you. Let's start. So with all your focus here on the board, less on chatting, let's begin. The narrator remembers going to the Gessler brothers at the age of 13. So when this boy turned into an adolescent of 13 or 14 years, that is when he says he was promoted, literally promoted, to deserve Gessler brother made shoes. They were a landmark in themselves, right? So if you were old enough and mature enough, only then could you get a pair of shoes made by the Gessler brothers, and that is how his father also promoted him. Okay, so I will deal with these questions definitely. Let's go through this. The narrator remembers going to the Gessler brothers at the age of 13. He was astonished to see the pair of stately boots kept in the display window. The boots were beautiful and seemed to encase in themselves the sole of the boot. So for the first time when he went there, he was surprised. How could people come up with shoes that looked so beautiful? On one side of the display window was occupied only by a pair of boots that were classic. They were a mingle of the old and the new and the best. The Gessler brothers were, now who were there? The Gessler brothers were a pair of almost identical looking brothers. They looked almost identical, who owned 2 shops combined into one. The younger Gessler brother was more vocal and spoke on behalf of the elder one. So the younger brother has got a crisp voice, and his accent is extremely German. You can make out very well that his deep-throated accent was German. So the younger Gessler brother was more vocal and spoke on behalf of the elder one also. The elder one hardly spoke. They had a workshop on the first floor of their shop and spent hours working on the orders that they received. the customers who came into their shop could seat themselves on a single wooden chair that had a church-like appearance. So there was simplicity. There was no flashy lights. There were no focus lights. You just had to come and sit in the calm and peace of a shop that had only one or two pieces of furniture. For customers, there was one to sit on, and the whole shop smelled of leather, fine leather. So, the customers who came to their shop could seat themselves on a single wooden chair that had a church-like appearance. They seemed to be in no hurry to deal with customers. And after a while, with a tip-tap of their bar slippers, one of them would come down. Oh, there it is. One of them would come down the stairs wearing an expression that looked as if he had been woken up from a dream of shoes. Could you please assist us in understanding how to incorporate quotes from The Tempest into our answers effectively? Well, I have done that previously as well, but when I start dealing with literature once again before your examination, I will tell you that as well, okay? Yes, the smell of leather everywhere. As I said, the shop smelt of leather and looked really very simple and stately. Now, the fitting. Let's understand what is the kind of shoes that they sold. What was the quality? What was it that really touched the heart? Now, this is the quality of the shoes that they sold. This particular point is going to talk about that. The fitting, the leather, the finish, and the comfort of the footwear they provided were a class apart. All right? How can you define it? They were a class apart. It was hard to come by shoes of such quality and finesse. Finesse, finishing. The brothers never compromised on quality of their shoes, and so it was difficult for them to outrightly accept a fault in their product. So, now here is a quotation I have used from there. In case they heard that there was a complaint in the shoe that they had made, they would find it really very difficult. That aisa kaise ho gaya? How is it that their shoe creaked? But if it did, then it was a matter of great disbelief for them that how did it happen? They were honest to the core, and on learning of a fault in their shoe, they returned the charge, the money. They returned the charge even after it had been used. So if there was a defect, they completely accepted it, and they would also give back the money, reimburse the money. Nowadays it is called reimburse. Okay, it's not going to show here. Let me write it. Okay, so this is what it was. Now, and I have used a quote, it shouldn't have creaked. This is what he said. How did it happen? It should not have happened like that. They were honest to the core, and on learning of a fault in their shoe, they returned the charge. Let's move ahead. Their keen eyes could detect a fault from a distance. They were so good at their work that even the smallest defect in a shoe could easily be detected by them. They expressed contempt at flashy, poor quality shoes and found their customers' indulgence in bad shoes most unceremonious. Let's understand this line. Found their customers' indulgence. In case their old customers ever purchased shoes that were of bad quality or poor make, they found it very, very insulting. They did not like it at all. And that is why he The moment he looked at the fashionable shoes on the narrator's feet, he says, "Those are not my boots." That is why this particular point has been put in. Despite all the hard work and superior workmanship, they were losing out to the newer firms. Before this particular point, we have spoken in great detail about the kind of shop that they had, the kind of two brothers that they were, the kind of work that they did, what did they like, what did they not like. And now we are going to talk about what are the reasons that led to the downfall of such fantastic workers. Despite all hard work and superior workmanship, they were losing out to newer firms. The newer firms produced factory-made shoes in bulk. What did they do? They produced shoes depending on the orders that they received, which means, oh, you have some bad big, okay. So, the newer firms produced factory-made shoes in bulk that were promoted through advertisement. Those big worms have no self-respect. These are again quotes out of Mr. Gessler, the younger brother. So, he absolutely condemned factory-made shoes. They were very against the idea of advertising and therefore could not promote their work in the fast-changing world. So, again, there is a very important quote here, and I have not mentioned it, but you must, which is, they get it all by advertisement. They get it all. That particular quote is also a quote that you can give in there. Then, they did not accept help of any sort. Another problem and ideal that they followed, which was a problem in the modern changing world, was that they did not like to take help from anybody. They liked to work extremely independently. So, what were the drawbacks because they did not take help? I have given them in sub-points. Could not finish orders in time, suffered the loss of customers and money, they lost their shop. Let's go further down. Suffered a heartbreak, finally starved to death. All right? So these are some of the things that actually did not work in their favor. They were not suited to the upcoming modern environment. Let's understand other things about the Gessler brothers which are very, very important. They firmly believed in their work. What is it that made them a class apart? What it is that made them symbols of quality? It all made them to become symbols of quality. These are the points. These points will make them the symbol of quality. They firmly believed in their work. They never compromised on quality. They never compromised on their ideals. They may have lost the fight to changing times and tactics of the materialistic world, but they definitely set an immortal example of, what are the immortal examples that they set? High standards, devotion to their profession, simple living, and high thinking. These are the things that made them symbolic of quality. They had become epitome of quality. What are they? They firmly believed in their work. They never compromised on quality. They never compromised on their ideals. They may have lost the fight to changing times and the tactics of materialistic world, but they definitely set an immortal example of high standards. These are the things: high standards, devotion to their profession, and simple living, but with a high thinking. Right? So, These are here in highlights you will find are again the central idea of this particular lesson. Their death marks the death of idealistic devotion of the world to their craft. All right? Their death is symbolic of the idealistic notions that people had when they actually loved the work that they did. It also indicates the tragic end of the craftsman at the hands of industrialization and the modern world. So this spells the central idea, or you can also call it the theme of quality. Now let's understand a few things about the narrator. The narrator sees them over a long period of time. Okay? So the narrator has observed them over a long period of time from his adolescence up to his adulthood. And what is it that he saw? The narrator sees them over a long period of time when they were celebrated shoemakers, to their days of struggle, then their worst period of poverty and starvation, and finally to their tragic death. Okay? When the firms were preferring modern satisfaction over consumer satisfaction, Gessler brothers were different. They preferred consumer satisfaction above materialistic satisfaction. That is a very nice point you have put forward. Passion to create something, that particular point also is very well put up. Death of the younger brother, Mr. Gessler, was due to the narrator. I really doubt that. No, it was not due to the narrator. Let me tell you what I firmly perceived and understood from the lesson. Anyway, let us begin from here. So, what was the narrator's observation? Let's start putting it in points. The narrator sees them over a long period of time when they were celebrated shoemakers. They made it for the best people. To their days of struggle when they started struggling. And then to their worst period, the third period was the worst period of the poverty and starvation, and finally the fourth to their tragic death. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 points. He saw them through 4 stages. These you can call are the stages that the narrator has spoken about. Let's talk about something else. He valued their work, loved their shoes, and respected their ideals. Very important point. He tried his level best to keep them supplied with work, whether others gave them work or not. But the narrator gave them work. He did not even require those shoes. Still, he would give them more orders to keep them busy and supplied with work, henceforth money. So he tried his level best to keep them supplied with work. He hated himself for hurting their feelings. When he wore a certain, the day he told them of a complaint in the shoe, that day he really regretted that he should not have told them because it hurt Mr. Gessler. And another time when he absent-mindedly walked into their firm with wearing a fashionable pair of boots that he had got due to some urgency during one of his travels. So those were the pair of boots that Mr. Gessler pointed out and felt very insulted that those are not my boots and they must be hurting you here. So he tried his level best to keep them supplied with work. He hated himself for hurting their feelings, which happened on 2 occasions. Now, let me shift this further up. He was somehow so attached to the Gesslers that he could not control his tears when he heard of the younger brother's death. All right? So the closure of the shop, in fact, to this particular point, you can add closure of the shop and the demise of Mr. Gessler brought tears to his eyes. We can also say that. Right? When the narrator pays a check after a week, Gessler died because of slow starvation. Well, he would not have accepted. They were very, very true to their ideal. They would never accept money before the delivery. So even if he made an attempt, they would not have taken it. He would not have taken it. I did not count the many times that Mr. Gessler's shop was visited by the narrator, but if you go through the lesson, I'm sure you will be able to count. There are so many times that he must have gone and not mentioned in the story. Yes, the shoes that they made were of extremely high quality, but they charged nominally. Not too low, not too high, nominally, just right. They never went ballistic over the cost, but, okay? Yes, the narrator provided them with a lot of orders. Don't go into that. How many times did the narrator visit them? Because that has not been mentioned in the story. Don't think small. आप लोग छोटा सोच रहे हो. Go to the larger part of the story. He has narrated incidents only when something very important has happened. What about the other times when he might have visited the shoe shop? So don't go कि नहीं 4 दफे गए थे, नहीं 5 दफे गए थे. That is absolutely irrelevant. You need not go into that. Yeah, so you can also say quality always wins over quantity. Well, the description of Mr. Gessler has been very clearly given, and it has been also said that there were men of short stature, short-statured, slender men, right, who had a leathery skin. Just like the way they dealt with fine leather, in the same manner, the skin on their face also had a leathery look. They had grey-blue eyes, keen grey-blue eyes, and their hair were red. They were reddish curly hair on their beard and on their head. I remember that much of a description. Yes, crinkly means curly, very curly. So this tells us a summary and almost everything very important. Most of the questions that you will answer will carry all these points. I don't think that there's some very few points you will find that you can give in as separately, but as and when you start writing any particular answer on quality, almost all these points will be inclusive. The narrator gave him the final order for several pairs of shoes once again. When he saw that the man was without any work, the man was starving, weak, Mr. Gessler had, within a span of a year, Mr. Gessler, in the absence of his brother, in the absence of work, in the absence of proper nourishment, had actually aged over 15 years. एक साल के अंदर में 1 साल तक नरेटर उस शहर में नहीं था, मगर उस 1 साल के बाद जब वो गेज़लर ब्रदर्स की दुकान में गया तो उसने देखा कि मिस्टर गेज़लर बहुत ज़्यादा वीक हो चुके हैं और उनके 15 years he had advanced in age. He could not recognize him. He thought it is the elder brother. But then he realized that no, he was very much the younger one. Organize your answer. Many of you are asking me that what should be the points of how do we write a good answer? The good answer should always begin with a little bit of background. Give a little bit of 1 or 2 or 3 sentences of background. After that, you come to the main points. To support your main point, then you give a quotation. And when you come to the conclusion of a good answer, then it should be very centralized. That how does it affect the whole story? And that is how it will work. Right? So discuss how consumerism and industrial revolution served as the doomsday for craftsmen. Again, the same thing, that you will go to these points. What are the points? Where is it that the Gessler brothers lost all their race? It is here. Their death marks the death of idealistic devotion of the old world to their craft. It also indicates the tragic end of craftsmen at the hands of industrialization and the modern world. Calling a doom and calling their final death is the same thing. Doom means destruction in a way, right? When you finally destroy something, then it is called destruction. Now let us move ahead and let us do another one, which is called Fritz. I'll see what I can do about that, right? There are a few days left and a lot to cover. I'm trying my level best to do as much as I can. So, and you are also helping me a lot, but I have taken that point into consideration. So, Fritz by Satyajit Ray, and let us try to cover the whole story in points. Price contained the bill of boots, which indicates that the younger Gessler brother did not have any money. As soon as he received the bill, then the narrator rushes to make the payment, doesn't he? He immediately goes out to pay. Okay, now coming to Fritz. Let's pay attention. Now let us draw our focus here. Very much. That is they were devoted to their craft. They were devoted to the quality of their craftsmanship, the ideals of their craftsmanship, the age-old passion to serve the people that they were making shoes for. All right? So their customers came before them. Their profits never came before them. Coming to Fritz. Can we now pay attention here? The narrator noticed a strange quietness had come over his friend Jayanto on reaching Bundi. Jayanto assured him that in fact he was pleased to be in Bundi as, well, spelling of Bundi, I need to correct myself here. I did a shortcut for myself and I let that be. But for you, I will come back to the original. Please, that is the spelling of Bundi. Okay. Jayanto assured him that in fact he was pleased to be in, again, double O, Bundi, as he could relate to the atmosphere. Let's go story-wise. See, Satyajit Ray had a very fantastic style of writing stories. He loved to delve in supernatural, mysticism, suspense. So he created beautiful characters and beautiful stories around these things. Just anything for him could become a statement where he could convert it into a story. Elder brother was died in grief due to heartbreak. I had mentioned that point, heartbreak. So he was grieved, sorrowful and heartbroken. Okay. Oh yes. Okay. Let it be. On reaching Bundi, Jayanto assured him that in fact he was pleased to be in Bundi. So Jayanto insisted he wanted to go to Bundi. But then after that, reaching Bundi, he started looking a little lost and a little weird. And the narrator noticed a strange quietness had come over his friend Jayanto on reaching Bundi. Jayanto assured him that in fact he was pleased to be in Bundi as he could relate to the atmosphere. Why? He says that I feel wonderful to be here. He actually says it. He says, no, on the contrary, I'm feeling a lot better. This place is truly wonderful. Those are his exact words. The circuit house and its surrounding gardens are large and sprawling. Birds and monkeys were plentiful in the trees. Bundi seemed to have stood still in history. Now this is about Bundi. This is about the circuit house. Circuit house kaisa tha? And this is about Bundi. Bundi seemed to have stood still in history. Apart from the electric poles, everything seemed to be a part of the Rajputana era. So if there were not electric poles there, then everything seemed to be as if ancient, as if they were living a movie, a Rajputana movie. It was just like that. Apart from the electric poles, everything seemed to be a part of the Rajputana era. That means ancient. For some strange reason, Jayanto had insisted on visiting Bundi instead of more popular tourist cities like Jaipur and Chittor. Now, pay attention here. For some strange reason, please delve your focus here. For some strange reason, unknown even to Jayanto. Even Jayanto did not know why did he want to go to Bundi so badly, but he wanted to. Instead of going to other tourist destinations, Jayanto decided to return to Bundi. While walking in the garden, he was drawn to a deodar tree and was excited to have located it. So they were walking in the garden after lunch, and all of a sudden he started looking for a certain tree. When he found it, he got really excited. However, he seemed unable to remember why. Then what happens? Memories and flashbacks start to come back to Jayanto. At night, as night descended, he started to remember even more vividly things and people around him. So, okay. Right. So that means you are following. I've written it as simple language as I can. As they sat in the drawing room with only an oil lamp. तो यहाँ क्या होता है? When we talk of nostalgia, many a times you will find in the question nostalgia. Nostalgia means old memories coming back. When you start becoming very emotional, अच्छा हम ऐसे पहले करते थे. There are so many times your own grandparents would talk about their times and they really get lost and happy talking about their own younger days. In the same manner, talking of Bundi also made him a little happy. Memories and flashbacks started to come back to Jayanto. As night descended, he started to remember even more vividly, clearly, things and people around him. As they sat in the drawing room with only an oil lamp burning. Now, do you see, very cleverly Satyajit Roy has started to change the atmosphere. What does he do here? he tells us that it is really dark. Narrator says, अंधेरा सा ही था और सिर्फ एक ऑयल लैम्प पूरे हॉल में जल रहा था और हम दोनों बैठ के बातें कर रहे हैं. Right? That's the kind of atmosphere he created. With only an oil lamp burning, Jayanto recalled Fritz. Finally, Fritz comes into the picture. His Swiss toy doll, he narrated, that his uncle got for him from Germany. Okay, I will let you know that. I will find out and I will have it posted. Right? So, then what happens? Finally, Fritz has already walked into the story. And that too, when everything is dark except an oil lamp burning. Over a period of time, he had become obsessed with it to the extent that he stopped playing with any other toy. Even this is a very, very strange point, and you can write it in suspense and mysticism. When they talk of suspense and mysticism, then this can also come in. Over a very short period of time, he stopped playing with other toys and he got obsessed. Please pay attention to these two lines. With the toy to the extent that he had stopped playing with any other toy. He stopped playing with any other toys, and the story tells us very categorically that he was the only child. He was loaded with toys. If he asked for anything, he got it. He remembered the doll's expressive eyes and smile. At times, the young Jayanto was sure that the doll would understand every word if he was spoken to in German. The memory of the dog tearing the doll apart and its hurried burial under the deodar seemed to bring up an unpleasant feeling in him. So he did not talk much about that. Very hurriedly, he tells his friend about this particular thing. So when the dogs tore apart the doll, he buried it quickly. He did not like the face of the doll's torn up face. He did not like the sight of the doll's torn up face. Yes, he had a lot of time. He was still a young boy of 6. It has been mentioned that he was a young child of 6 and had not been admitted in school till that time. Yeah, you write about Fritz, all the kind of horror and everything that is happening around Fritz. While they were sleeping, Shankar was woken up due to Jayanto's movements. Jayanto told him that someone had been walking on his chest. Shankar dismisses it as a small animal or figment of imagination. Figment of imagination, he says, no, you're thinking too much. Tum pareshan ho, so jao, thake hue ho, so jao. Right? Or then he says it must be a cat or a mouse. That's why I have written here that he told him it must be a small animal or a figment of imagination. The next day, Jayanto seems to be even more disturbed. Now you see, tension in the story has started to rise. Suspense, कि उसके चेस्ट पे कौन चल के गया, उसकी छाती पे कौन चल के गया, क्यों शंकर रात में एकदम से डर गया, उसने खिड़की पे क्या सुना जिससे कि वो परेशान हो गया. You know, that is the kind of rising tension in the story. The next day, Jayanto seems to be even more disturbed, and Shankar is truly concerned for his friend. Right? For a while, Jayanto's youthful spirit seemed... Now, pay attention here before I move on. Is most concerned, and Shankar is truly concerned for his friend. So, there is a thing he says here. Tonight, I must give him one of the tranquilizers I brought with me. Why has he said this? He says it that, but I could see in the morning that he had not slept well. Tonight, I must give him one of the tranquilizers I brought with me. This is the extent of Shankar, of Jayanto's expressing fear and tension. Let us remember he is a man of 37. He is not a kid. If a man of 37 is giving out signals of fear, then it is a matter of concern. and his friend is concerned. So that is the extent of his stress. If you want to write how stressed he was, you can take up this point. For a while, Jayanto's youthful spirit surfaced while he points out things to Shankar at the fort. But he became even more pensive. So for a certain time, when they go sightseeing, Shankar seems to notice ki, acha no, he is reviving. He is feeling happy. He is pointing things to me. Look at that elephant. Look at the silver bed. Look at this and look at that. But then all of a sudden, his enthusiasm drops. It plunges, and Shankar observes it. But he becomes even more pensive. Pensive means sad and serious or thoughtful. It can mean any of these things. On being persuaded by Shankar, Jayanto told him that he was quite sure. On being persuaded by Shankar, Jayanto told him that he was quite sure that the footprints on the quilt were those of Fritz. Finally, he comes up with what is bothering him. Shankar came up with the idea that they must dig up the place and get over with the suspense once and for all. What was Shankar's idea? I have mentioned it here. He had intended to disprove his friend's misconception. Why did he do it? He intended to disprove his friend's misconception. He wanted to prove to his friend that you are unnecessarily getting freaked out. Don't get freaked out. There's nothing to fear. चलो ना खोदते हैं देखते हैं ना क्या है जो होगा देखा जाएगा डर क्यों रहे हो that is the kind of thing that Shankar is trying to imply over here. All right? Yes, to make him sleep, to make him rest for a while. Okay, so he had intended to disprove his friend's misconception. What was the misconception? That it was Fritz who had been walking on his chest at night. कौन सा misconception? That it was Fritz. उसके दिमाग से वो ये हटाना चाह रहा था कि Fritz जिंदा होके वापस आ गया है. Now, what does the story progress to? It was late in the afternoon. Now, this is where the real horror begins. It was late in the afternoon as they sat in the veranda. The atmosphere, pay attention to the atmosphere. The atmosphere had an eerie, haunted. Haunted, okay? Eerie means haunted. Silence, except for the occasional chatter of a monkey in the gulmohar tree. When the gardener arrived, they offered him 5 rupees, and he happily obliged to dig. He joked, saying that the treasure must be shared with him. Jayanto was extremely tense, and sweat ran down his face and neck. So, while these two are busy making arrangements of digging, the gardener and Shankar observed that Jayanto is so stressed and worked up that in the cool month of October, also there was sweat running down and his collar was wet. Coinciding with the peacock's call, Jayanto let out a strange, fearful sound. In the hole at their feet lay a small white skeleton. All 3 stood stunned and shocked. Okay? So that is how we get a complete gist of everything that this particular story travels through. Let me go back. I think I missed out a point. Yes. Now, oops. There you go. Elements of suspense, mystery, and horror. Most of all the questions that will come based on this. Jayanto's insistence on revisiting Bundi and his strange appearance on reaching. The atmosphere seems to have a strange effect on Jayanto. All right? This is elements of suspense, mystery, as the story progresses. From hardly any memory of his childhood spent in Bundi to a flood of memories, especially about his doll, Fritz. His excitement on seeing the Deodar for no apparent reason that he could recollect. His increasing discomfort and lost looks after dinner in the dimly lit parlor, especially of Fritz and his memories of his obsession with the doll. Jayanto's panic in the middle of the night, his insistence that something had been making a shuffling sound at the window and had also walked on his chest twice. Jayanto's absent-mindedly wandering off during the tour of the fort, his extreme nervousness in the car, his insistence that Fritz was the creature that had walked over the chest the previous night, his reluctance to find out the truth. Now, he became so fearful that he was scared of the truth also. His hesitation to find out the truth by digging under the tree. The atmosphere of the scenic, the garden was beautiful. It was actually a beautiful garden. The atmosphere of the scenic garden changing to abnormally silent and eerie. So from beautiful, it is becoming haunted. By the minute, it seems to turn haunted. Jayanto's profuse sweating in the cool month of October as the gardener prepares to dig the ground under the deodar tree. The sighting of the tiny white skeleton coinciding with the raucous call of a peacock and Jayanto's strange utterance. So these are points that will bring out the horror and mysticism of the story. Okay? Now, character sketch of Jayanto. That's also very important. Let us very quickly understand the character sketch of Jayanto. Man of 37, sensitive. So where was he working? He was working in a legal firm. Or was he working as a journalist? What was he working at? Give me an answer quickly. Was he a journalist or was he a lawyer? You will write your answers based on the points. I can only give you points. Ultimately, you have to write. आप जब तक अभी से लिखने की प्रैक्टिस नहीं करेंगे कुछ नहीं होगा. Give me an answer. I'm waiting for your answer. Was he a lawyer or was he a journalist? Yes, very good. He was a journalist. So he was a man of 37. He was a journalist. What was he? He was extremely sensitive. 3, fond of food. It has been said that despite the fact he was fond of food, he could not eat. वो इतने टेंशन में था कि वो खाना नहीं खा पा रहा था. इतना stressed out था. Easily moved by events. इसका मतलब कि कुछ भी आसपास जो होता है उससे उसको एकदम से फर्क पड़ने लगता है. Then hesitant to express. He is not able to talk as freely. He finds it difficult to express his thoughts, his fears. Seems to be burdened with some kind of a guilt. This is a very important point here. The story tells us that there was something weighing on his subconscious. That something weighing him down. कोई चीज़ उसको दबा रही थी. उसकी अपनी सबकॉन्शियस की उसने शायद बहुत साल पहले एक डॉल उसको सबसे पसंदीदा उसका टॉय था, उसने किस बुरी तरीके से उसको गड्ढे में डाल दिया बिना कुछ सोचे समझे. But he was a child, but that guilt always stayed with him. So he seemed to be burdened with some guilt. Now let's understand the character sketch of the narrator. The narrator's character sketch is actually quite a contrast to the character sketch of Jayanto. So he was also, let me push this a little further, then I think you can see both. Yeah. So character sketch of the narrator, he is an easygoing man, he enjoys things, he is affectionate and caring. Despite the fact that they are both men, they have been childhood friends, they work in separate firms, but still, every movement that Jayanto takes is observed by him, and he cares. Affectionate and caring, very observant. He is a very observant man. He is investigative. He is not scared of the truth. He likes to go and investigate. He will not let fear take him, but he will investigate. He is prompt. He is quick and light-hearted and lively. Light-hearted and lively. Several times he tries to cheer up his friend, and he jokes with the gardener. He laughs at the gardener's jokes, so on and so forth. So, easygoing, affectionate and caring, observant, investigative, prompt, light-hearted and lively. Oh, good. Keep writing. That's the only thing. So, basically, इस वक्त वैलेंटाइंस डे से पहले आपका एक ही इश्क है, और वो इश्क ये है कि आपको इंग्लिश को गले लगा लेना है. एंड देन इट सेज ये इश्क नहीं आसान, बस इतना समझ लीजिए एक आग का दरिया है और डूब के जाना है. राइट? सो अब इसमें डरना नहीं है, इसमें करना है. सो लेट द फायर गेट इनटू योर पेन and fire away. Let your pen become your vehicle to your victory. That's what it should be. So let's see some other things. Imagery. A lot of images have been discussed in this particular description of the circuit house. First, let me talk about the description of the circuit house. What is it? Post-colonial bungalow. Secondly, it is a post-colonial bungalow with high ceilings. What does it tell us? It's an age-old thing, right? Post-colonial bungalow with high ceilings surrounded by a garden with roses. That also has been mentioned, that the garden was full of roses in full bloom. On the other side, trees, inhabited with birds, and the house had a lot of cane furniture. Description of the city. Let's come to the important descriptions given for the city. What are there? A city with old Rajasthani architecture, retained, emphasizing its ancient Rajputana heritage. So it's a Rajasthani city, but everything in it talks beautifully, and everything has been maintained really very well. Okay, so a city. What else? The Bundi fort is visible amid the hills. Time seems to have frozen in a bygone Rajputana era. I have given you these in very brief points. You can elaborate on them. So these are the things that the narrator sees and the narrator tells us. These descriptions are really very important. Always go into the imagery of it. You might be asked. हो सकता है आपसे पूछा जाए. So with this, we come to the end of 2 chapters that we have done, and I hope you have been able to understand a few important elements of what you may do. Yes, the circuit house is of a British era, not the fort. The fort is a Rajasthani fort. Parrots and sounds of peacock. Well, as far as parrots and sounds of peacock are saying, तो वो क्या होते हैं? Inhabited with birds. Okay? Inhabited with birds. I have already given birds here. Ceiling fans, ropes. See, you know so much more. You know so much more. You can easily do so much more than what I have done here on the blackboard. Okay? I'm sure you'll do very well. Just learn how to put your summarizations into points, because you can pick up each point. Now pay attention to my words. I'm telling you another very important skill of either making an answer short or making an answer long. Once you have the points in your mind, point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4, point 5, all right? Once you have the stages of a story in your mind, and you have put them in short, brief sentences, on the basis of those sentences, you can actually expand the point and make it a 300-word answer, or you can keep it short, make it a 150-word answer, or you can be brief and you can make it a pinpointed 30-word answer. Dilawar was introduced with a horrific, again, only to add to the mystery and suspense. All right? So when they talk of Dilawar, they talk of a andhera wala kamra, and they talk of, you know, all those things. It's only to create an atmosphere. Difference between the past and the present Bundi. You must remember that this particular story had been written in the early years of 19th century, and it was written and published in 1971. In 1971, not every city had electric poles. So electricity coming into cities was also a sign of advancement and modernization. Everything about Bundi reminded people of the glorious Rajputana era. However, the electric poles tell us that no, this is a modern India, that this is also a place which is witnessing advancement. Ropes are connected to the window. In Hindi, unko roshandan kaha jata hai. Jo purane zamane mein, when the roofs used to be really very high at that point of time, either to stop the sunlight and air from coming, or to allow the sunlight and air to come in, either stopping it or allowing it, you could push it up or pull it down with the help of a rope. Okay? Shankar did not have an issue in going to Bundi. He was free to travel. He suggested other cities, but when his friend Jayanto insisted that, no, I want to go to Bundi, he said, come on, let's go. And then he had read a particular poem written by Rabindranath Tagore that had mentioned the Bundi fort. So he said, fine, let's go and see it. That was about a lot of things, especially the Deodar tree. He could not recall why did he want to go near the Deodar tree. The only difference in Bundi after 35 years must be a few bit of advancements here and there. And the biggest thing was, the biggest difference is that 35 years back, he saw Bundi as a child of 6. Everything looked large, enormous. But now, as an adult, from the adult's point of view, well, he had grown in size. So those very large things had started looking normal. What he earlier found to be his chair seemed like a throne. Now it seemed like a chair. It's only because he had grown up. Nothing much perhaps had changed except his perception. As a child, he saw it differently. As an adult, he saw it differently. Right? So with this, can we come to an end of the session? I hope these points were helpful. It is. It is an open-ended story. Satyajit Ray has not given us an explanation. ऐसा क्यों हुआ, क्यों उसके अंदर हमको white color का skeleton दिखा, और अगर skeleton था तो उसके कपड़े कहाँ गए? Nothing. What about the buckle and all that? No, he does not give any explanation. It is for you to conclude what you want to conclude. Yes, the author of the story generally left it open-ended so that you could conclude and further imagine things on your own. All right, so then we shall carry it forward. Before I end this lesson, I would like to tell you that if you want to take even more advantage of these lessons being taught here, you can go down to the description and join the other gang. It's right there. If you want more papers, then for the papers also, you can go down to the description. There is another set of papers that is coming out soon before your examination. One again for literature and one again for language. And with this, I wish you all the very best for your preparation. God bless. Have a wonderful day. Today in Lucknow, the sun is out. Some of you can enjoy the sun as well. Take care.